Until you get back. And we're back. It's COMP391. It's week 11, lesson 11, part 2, and we just learned in the last video how to do kind of a follow. If we want objects to follow us, what do we do? So we want to make an enemy now for this dude, right? In order for us to make an enemy, we're going to need either another cube like this as a container, if we're following the cube kind of idea, right? Some other cube. Or, if we don't do another cube, some other shape, like a circle or something else that rolls at us or whatever. Just to keep the same as what we have right now, let's add another cube, right? So we're just going to kind of zoom out here. And I'm going to go into, I'm going to go Shift S, right? So back into Blender, Shift S. I'm going to say cursor to center, right? So there's the center of our screen. If you notice, our grid doesn't change. That's our cursor to center. And our orientation still is going to be from the top this way because we want to add another cube in here, right? Now we want our enemy to be on this side, and it's going to come at us. That's what we want, right? So how does that work? Well, first we got to create our enemies. We're going to say Shift A, we make a cube, right? Here's the cube that we're going to create, right? And right now, if you notice, the cube is kind of empty, right? With this new cube, we want to label it right away. We don't want this cube to kind of be just a random cube that kind of comes into play, right? So here's our. And now, by the way, we were in edit mode, which is bad. Let's just undo that. Yeah, let's get into object mode and do that. Shift A, and we'll go add a cube. This is a new object. In our cube object right here, what we want to do is we want to rename this thing as enemy. There's our enemy. And now we're doing the same things we did last time with our enemy. We have our player, but I want to add in my enemy. My enemy is going to be like a scarecrow, right? Yeah, we got a scarecrow. Let's see where my scarecrow is. So I kind of have it in another project. Let's see if we can find this thing. And I've got it under, I wonder if I have it under 397. And it looks like this. Let me show you what my idle sequence looks like for this one. So here's my idle, and this guy is, I'll bring it into, here's my enemy. Right, so this is a scarecrow. So my scarecrow, this is his idle sequence, yeah. He's going to come at you, right? So here's my thing, he's got a run sequence. Let's see what the run sequence looks like if I was to look at some of these things. Here's my jump, here's my walk for the scarecrow, right? So that's what he looks like when he's walking at you, right? So he's walking at you, he's my enemy, so when he hits you, you're going to fall. Now there's a couple of issues here. What do you see as an issue? Anybody? Shape is weird, right? Shape is really weird. His shape is more of a rectangle as opposed to a square. That can be helpful because but we may want to, and I'm just saying, right? We may want to realign physical shape of my object to meet his collision bounds, right? So right now, the other object we had fits the square, right? That other character. This one, not really, right? He's more of a rectangle. Let's look at some other images just to make sure, like his jump and his run and all that are around the same thing. Right now, if you notice, just from a sequence perspective, if I click on him and if I go modify canvas and if I go canvas size, the whole canvas size is 78 by 132, right? So the whole thing is 78 by 132. So let's go back to some other ones. And let's look at some other walk sequence, like a walk sequence further down. So that's kind of another one, right? And he's still 78 by 130, still kind of in that frame. Let's see if 78 by 132 from a canvas size perspective is the same. And it is. So 78 by 132, that's the proportions that we're talking about in pixels, right, for my character, right? And what about the jump? Does the jump change at all? Because that's kind of important to look at the jump sequence. Because sometimes when you're jumping, you get some weird things. See, like that's 78 by 132. So when he jumps, he kind of, jumps up, and then he kind of lands, whatever, right? So that's his thing. So he's more of a rectangular shape, right? 78 by 132. How do I make it so that Blender takes on the same proportions? Any ideas? Come on, guys. I could change the units, right, and make the units into meters or whatever. And by the way, when you export things, FYI, and this is just going back to what we're talking about, if you export things into Unity, everything has to be meters, right? And also, it's Y up, not Z up, right? That's the other thing you're going to notice. When you export stuff, huh?
That's weird.
It's just the way they do it, right? So Unity does Y up instead of Z up, and Z is on the other axis. And they do that because for a different reason. They do it because it's more natural for us to see X and Y. So from a person who's never done 3D before, and they actually do that in Unreal as well. Unreal and Unity, both those game engines are Y up, not Z up. Okay, let's go back. So I've got this sequence, and I want to do this proportion, 78 by 132, right, approximately, let's just say. Or 79 or 80. It looks like this guy's, even though my canvas is 78, let's go look at canvas size. Right, my canvas size is 81 by 145. So he actually is actually larger. This canvas is slightly larger in his jump sequence than he is when he's running. So that's really the size I need, like when he's the widest he can be, right? I don't know what the widest he can be is, right? The only way I can figure that out is if I actually physically load all of these images in, and let's just go to jump number 6. So that's another one. And if you notice, these are all the frames in his jump sequence, right? And we're doing, and this is 81 by 110. Let's look at the actual canvas size. My canvas size here is 81 by 145. So that might be a better proportional size, 81 by 145, to kind of capture him in. So if I'm doing Blender units, remember I'm not changing meters right now, but I got Blender units. What are the regular Blender units for a character? So if I go back to Blender, and if I look at this thing, how big is this unit? Well, if you look at it, the dimensions are 2 by 2 by 2. If we use the same kind of dimensions idea, we don't care, by the way, about his depth dimension. His Y dimension can be as deep as you want it. Well, yes and no, right? We want his Z dimension to match our other dimensions here. So let's go back to Fireworks to figure this out. So if I say our width is 81, and if I say it's 0.81 of 2, so if 100%, as an example, was of a unit, that's what it would be. And his total width for his canvas, the total canvas size here is 81 by 145. We could say that this is 0.81 Blender units to give us the same proportion. It's a good start because if we went 0.81 Blender units, we can still stay the same proportional size, and we can scale up if we need to, and it'll work out the same way. And then 1.45 Blender units, 81 by 1.45 Blender units per face. So let's look at see how we can do that. So if I go back to Blender, and if I say the width, so my scale on the or my dimensions on my X size, if I change this to less than that, if I go back down, it makes them kind of thinner, right? So I want to make it so that its width is 81, so that's like 0.81 Blender units. Just follow me here for a second. So this is 0.81 Blender units, and my width, or my height, if you will, my height, which is my Z, is 145. So it's not here. That's my scale. Let's go back to that. Let's put my scale back to 1. I meant this is, what did I say again? 81. Did I say 81 by 145? Sorry, my brain is like on fire today. Canvas size, 81. Just to say the same, and we don't have to be exact, but we're going to keep exact just for this example. So 0.81 Blender units, and then this is, if you notice, it changed the scaling up here, and by 145 would be the Z, so 1.45 Blender units here, just to keep the same dimensions. Right now, this is good. What about on this angle here? 145 is good on this one, but this one here would be the same. This is not going to change. The height of my object isn't going to change this height, but this can't be wider than than my X, right? My X and Y have to be the same, in other words. So my Y is also got to be 0.81. Okay, and the reason for that is because when I rotate this guy around, he can't be looking different, right? It's got to be the same width on every dimension, every place. We're going to do the same kind of thing we did here. Okay, that's the first thing, but it's pretty small, right? So to give you an example of how that looks, let's go into orthographic mode for a second, and we're going to pull this thing up, right? And we're going to move this across over here to this dude. And we're going to zoom in so we can see from this guy's perspective what we see. Right? Don't worry about the camera for a second. In fact, if anything, let's get rid of the camera because I don't want to be able to see the my camera at all. Because who cares? And by the way, if you want to get rid of the camera, remember the camera is right inside the player right now. And if I don't want to see it, then I got to go into camera and just turn it off. What's that? H to hide. Right. So if you look at this, my proportions for my dude right now are a little bit small. Right, so if I step it up, I've got to step it up all around. I'm not going to limit them. I'm not going to scale them, unevenly. I got to scale them across all the axes. I'm going to press S for scale, right, and I'm going to move it up as an example so that everything scales proportionally, right? So, as an example, and I'm going to kind of try it out. So I'm going to try it out for size and see what I get to. I'm not quite at 1 or 2 blender units, but I want my height to at least hit 2 blender units here, right? Because if I don't get my 2 blender units here, it's not going to work. So I'm going to keep scaling until I get 2 blender units, as an example. So I'm going to keep going carefully, scaling up. Oh, I went too high. It's going to be tough because there it is. That's it. So that is exactly the same height as my dude. Okay. If I want my enemy to be the same size, now he's going to be a different proportion of picture though, because if you look at this dude, right, he looks pretty small. He looks like this, right? It's almost like our scarecrows are smaller in the head than our character, right? Because our character's got a really big head. Right now it looks like this, really big, as I said. So maybe what I want to do is I want to scale this twice as high, or time and a half. So instead of 2 blender units now for height, from a proportion, I want to make this to 3 blender units. So he's actually taller than our character. So it's hard for our character to jump over him, let's just say, all right? And we're going to make this block just sit there for a bit. We're not going to color it. We're going to see if our character can jump over it. We'll adjust our heights, and then we'll add in our look and feel. So let's do that. So we're going to keep scaling up till we get to like 3. So we're going to keep going. So it's like 1.5 times, so that's too big. Keep going. So it's a kind of a bigger scarecrow. So our enemy is a little bit scarier than our character. Let's just keep going. So it's just around 3 from a proportional perspective, and I'm just scaling up by hand, by eye, and we're going to get close, but we're going to stop at a certain point. Yeah. Sorry, that's the best I can get. Okay, so that's 3. So now when you look at him from a top-down perspective, our character is quite a bit higher than our guy, right? Which makes sense because now. If I pull out again, if I'm going to go back out to this, right? He's going to be over here. This is our enemy. We're going to give him some basic things. Okay, so right now he is going to be, from a physics perspective, we're going to make it so that he is, instead of a static object, he's going to be a dynamic object, right? That he comes down. And let's see if my character can jump over him. I'm going to put him in the middle, actually. Let's see what happens. So I press play. He falls. Hey, what happened? How come he sank halfway through? He's like gone, like completely gone. Like he's halfway through our object, right? So here's what's that? Okay. So let's go to set origin to geometry, right? So there's our origin to geometry, right? So our origin's right here in the middle, right? And let us follow our descent. Oh, what happened? And if I kind of go here, and again, if I can push this thing, if I jump, can I jump over my guy right now? The answer is no. My character can't jump over my scarecrow. So eventually what's going to happen is, and if I just turn I'm going to turn my proportions and see what happens to this guy. How come he sinks? So he goes boom, and he actually does sink. He does sink into the ground. Look, take a look, right? Kind of goes right in there. How come he does that? Well, we haven't really defined any kind of collision bounds for this dude either, right? So let's put some collision bounds on him. And now let's try it. That's good. That's better, right? But he's really tall, right, for our jump sequence to work. If I go back to this, so I'm going to go back to our camera view, and I'll hit him now. Look, watch, he's there. Okay. So now our guy is going to jump over him. He can't. There's no way our guy can jump over the scarecrow, and he's got to be able to jump over the scarecrow, or else he can't win, right? So our guy's going to really jump high now, right? We're going to make him so he jumps right off the screen. Okay, so let's see how we can do this. We know we can kind of hit this guy and our character has a couple of things we have. First of all, let's look at our, just to see how our height and everything is being affected. Let's take a look at our world. Our world, right now our gravity is 30, which is affecting our jump height, right? So this is okay. I like our gravity being 30. But right now our jump force is only 10, right? Our fall speed is 55. Let's make our jump force 20 and see what happens. Maybe that's too much. Not 20, I said. So jump force is 20. All right, let's see if that works. So I'm going to go press play, hit, and then when we jump, whoa, okay, we jump really high. So let's see if that works. Whoa, okay, so we're going to move and we're going to jump, and then, like we have a bit of a hover kind of thing going on, right? Because we're jumping. Hey, there he is on top. So there's a bit of work to get on top of the guy. Okay? And we can push him, but our jump force is like 20. I think 20 might be too high. What do you think? So we're not going to do jump force of 20. We're going to cut this down to jump force of 15. We want to come almost on top of the guy. All right, so let's try this again. So jump force of 15, and we're going to go jump, right? That's almost perfect. Let me see. So can I even jump on? I don't know. Let's see if I can. It's almost like I got to pick this one and jump, right? Oh. I know, only one direction. That's the other thing about jump. We may have to take away that jump and add our own, right? Because the jump sequence right now just goes up and down. It doesn't go this way, which is probably what we want to do, right? So, so you can get on top, but it's really hard for 15. So let's add another unit of force, right? So we'll do this. And right now our maximum fall speed is 55 units. The step height is something else, how it moves up and down. And let's just kind of try this one more time. So boom, boom, and then jump. That's almost there. So kind of move and jump, and you can see how you can probably get on him on top of the dude now. That's not unusual for him. Right? So, but we also push him. Now remember, we just touched him a couple times. He touched us a couple times, right? So we're going to lose health that way. All right, so that's one thing. You notice how my machine is rumbling there, right? So it's kind of, you hear the fan going on? That fan's going because I'm really taxing the system with what I'm doing, all right? See you in a second. All right, let's go back to our scene. So I'm going to get rid of this. I've already sized this guy the way I want now. Let's do what we did last time. Let's add in a couple of things to make him so that we can see him, right? First things first, I want to upload this stuff to I got my enemy. Here's my idle, and I've got all this walk sequence, right? Here's all this stuff right here. I want to add all of this here into my Blender scene. So I know I've got this guy. He's logged as enemy. I'm going to take this whole enemy, copy it, and so that you have him as well. I'll put him into that same sequence. So go to 2D game. I'm going to go to assets, and you know what? Just to be a little bit better, I'm going to just paste them in assets. So I should go back out. Right-click, paste, and then in assets, here's my enemy. I'm going to make my hero kind of a hero folder. I didn't do that last time. Here's hero, and I'm going to take all these things here, right? All these sequences and put them into the hero. Okay, so I've got my enemy and my hero. There we are. And my hero we just did already. My enemy, I want to put him in there too, but the problem with him in idle for my enemy is the same name. It might be the same name for idle, or no, it's not. Thank God. For idle for my hero. All right, otherwise it'd be really weird. So let's put idle in there for my hero, for my enemy. All right, and I'll upload this to Blender. To GitHub in a second. So again, what do? We go back to Blender, right? Again, there's two ways to do this. You could certainly do this in compositing mode, or UV editing mode. So let's go to UV editing mode. And right now, if you notice, my focus is on my character, and I want to load in another object, right? So I could load in another one by opening up this thing. So I can kind of unpack or load in another texture from here. The other way to do it is to go back into default mode, which is what I want to do. And now I've got my basic material. Let's add a material. It doesn't matter what we call it. We'll just call this the enemy material. So we'll call this enemy. And the material is going to have no specularity, right? It's also going to be, we're going to make it so that it's transparent, so we can't see it. So we're going to turn our alpha all the way down, so it's completely transparent. And we're going to add a texture into the material, the new texture, here we are, which we're going to make it an image movie. We're going to call this the enemy texture. You can also call this the idle texture. So this is enemy idle. There we go, enemy idle. And then what we want to do is want to load in that new texture. So open, we're going to go into assets, we're going to go into, into enemy and click idle, right? And then press open image. Okay, so there's our enemy, right? So we got our enemy asset in there. What I want to do here, remember like last time, is now that we've loaded him in, we also want to make it so the UV, and we want to make sure that his alpha is 100%. So we haven't really unwrapped him yet, but we will. Okay, now that we've got that down, we go back into UV editing, and now we go into, from here, we look at idle 001. So this is the one it looks like. Here's our enemy. And we go into tab, and we go unwrap, and we go unwrap. If I go unwrap, everything is all over the place, like last time, right? So that's not really what we want to do. We're going to go unwrap, and we're going to go Smart UV project. We're going to press OK. Now when we do that, we have a couple of things that go on. Remember, just like these faces. Now we're going to go Control Tab to go into face mode, right? And we're going to deselect all and just select our front face. This is the front face of our enemy, right? And we want to make this grow so it's the same size as this. And what was that again? Control B? Control B, right, for this one? P, Control P, that's right. Now it does one side, but we got to do the other side. So we got to kind of take the other side. It does only one face or the other face, right? So if I go Control P, you know, whatever we do, it's going to skew the guy, right? So let's deselect all, use B select to select this size here, and then I'm going to press G, but limit it so it only goes on the x-axis, and make it so that it's completely the way it's supposed to be. Now, what was that? I would like. Now there's a problem. Why is this all skewed this way, right? Well, because let me just undo for you to see what I'm talking about. Okay, so undo and undo. I'll actually do that right now. So I'm going to save, file, save. So he's on the same page as me. And I'm going to go into our terminal window, and I'm going to say, my assets? Yes. So I want to do this. I want to say in my 2D game, right? I'm going to go git add dot git commit -m, and we're going to say added enemy and reorged assets. So this little thing, there it is. And we're going to say git push origin to master. If everything does well, you guys should have it now on GitHub. If you go to GitHub, you should have all my assets. And if I was to check this out to make sure that that's true, if I go to GitHub and refresh, then you're going to see added enemy and reorged assets. And if you notice, I've got my enemy here and my hero here. I've got both enemy and hero sequences for you guys, right? So you guys can download those. Okay, so this is cool, but I want to be able to redo this. So again, there's a couple ways to do this. You can do what we talked about, which is Control P. So if I go Control P, sorry, I'm going to be in here first. Control P kind of does one side, but what I want to do is, if I use Control P, it's bad. And I'll show you why in a second. If I use B select mode and select just this face, this line here, and then go G along the x-axis and make him stretch, he stretches, which is cool, but he's all skewed on this side. Why? He's all turned on the wrong side, right? So for me, I got to go select all, and then I got to rotate -90, right? So I go rotate along the, if I go -90, then this is good, right? This is good. Now I got to redo my facings because it's wrong. It's the right thing to do, but I got to do another Control P. So I go Control P, right? Now it's the right way, and I may have to adjust this again. I may have to undo that. A, B select mode, and then G along the x-axis. Yeah, I messed up, so let me just do that there. So what I meant to do is scrunch this up so I can go scale in, so that it's here, as an example, approximately, and then grab the, use B select mode to grab the top, and then G along the y-axis to make it higher. So to get that mode that I want, B along the bottom, and then grab along the y-axis so that it's all the way down to the bottom. And now I've got the front of my guy. Look. Right, so now the other faces are all messed up, right? But this is the idle for my guy, right? So let's just do this on the top. There's a bit of an art to this, like we talked about before. Remember we did the skybox. It's the same idea with a bit of the the top. If I go deselect all and then use my B select mode to G along the y-axis here, you want to kind of grab it so that it kind of hits the top of the box as much as possible. And now, okay, so we have one face. But what about the other faces? We have the other faces. We want to hide them, and we do the same thing we did last time. We kind of go select this face here. There it is. And we want to go G, grab this face, and put this somewhere in a corner that has nothing, and we're going to scale this down so that's really, really small. Okay, cool. And we'll do the same thing for the other faces. We have this face. We're going to scale this down so it's really small. And we're going to do the bottom faces. We're going to kind of scale this down so it's really small. And we're going to also grab this face, put it into a corner so we get rid of those faces. And just get rid of all the clutter. That's what I'm doing here. So there's this face, the back face, right? And we're going to move this one over here. And we're going to do the same thing for this one, right? We're going to kind of scale this one down and move it, and it's kind of over there. And then we have one more, which is the top face. Here's the top face. And we're going to scale this one down. We're going to grab it and put it into a space where there's transparency. And now we have our guy that looks like a scarecrow. Yeah? Whew. Okay, now let's go back to default mode for a second. And I'll update this whole thing in a second for you guys. And let me go back to the way it looks, so you can see what it starts looking like. We're starting to get better and better on this thing. And we'll go. Again, we're in. Make sure we're not in edit mode. Now we're in object mode, and press P for play, and we can see that both of them kind of drop at the same time. So now we have our scarecrow, right? And we can try and jump on his head, right? There he is. He's on his head right now. And now this is kind of, you see that there's a problem here, right? My scarecrow, the top of the scarecrow's head, is the top of the cube, right? So what I may want to do is change the boundaries. Yeah. Not about this topic. Okay, go. Tell me. Sure. What's the topic? It's an append. You got to do an append from one to the other. That's the way to do it. But the thing to do is when you append, if you append the Blender file, you may have to make sure you're importing the right information, right? So first of all, you can't append unless it's a blend file. That's the one thing you have to know, right? And you also have to select what you want to append. Inside the blend file itself, there's many folders, right? So there's one for material, one for mesh, one for object, one for this, one for lighting, and so on. You got to select all the options that you want in order for you to append it in. So let's try that. So just for Igor, right? Since he's asking. So here's our blend file, save. We'll save this up. And now just to finish off, because we're kind of timing out, I'm going to git add dot, right? And we're going to go git commit -m, and we're going to say fixed enemy facing, right? That's all we've done. And we're going to get git push origin master. And what that's going to do is going to push that stuff up to GitHub, so you have what I just have. Everything I just did with my shape is done. Now I want to add in what Igor is talking about. He wants me to add in something else. Well, guess what? I have an actual scene that I could bring in. Let's bring in my head. Okay, I did actually a little thing of my head. I actually used my head to create my own document. So let's do that. So let's go to my head first. So I'm going to kind of just to make sure I'm going to save this thing. I'm going to get out of it, and then I have something called Tom's head. right? Seriously. So let's go into there. So I got ship, Tom's head, Tom head. There we go, Tom's head, and I got this stuff here that I was doing with Tom's head. And my Tom head is actually, what I did was I wanted to model myself, so I took some really weird pictures of me. So let's take a look at this. Seriously, here's my left side, right? And what I wanted to do is model my head, like literally model my head. See if I can do it, right? There's one of these little projects I want to show you how to do, but we just don't have time for all this stuff. It's you know what? At the end of the day, you only have a limited time of what you can do. So what I did was I think I've got a folder with Tom's head in here somewhere. And if I do, I'll show you what it looks like. It's actually quite neat what it came up with. Now, there's some good things and bad things about this. The good thing is it doesn't quite look like me, right? Because it's me, but it's a Blender version of me, right? It's not really something that makes sense to me. I'm trying to find it where it is. You know, it's embarrassing, but I think I may have lost it. There's a lot of work too, tons of work. I can't tell. Well, here I got another one. I got I did a Honda Pilot one. Here's one, and here's what the Blender file looks like for the Pilot. So I was actually modeling my car. Here's what the car looks like, and I kind of took care of the front part of the car. And let's go into edit. Let's go into a solid mode here. So instead of we'll go to material. So this is kind of the front of my. I was kind of working on my Pilot here, right? And I want to bring in my 2D stuff. So I want to bring some other kind of blend file. Like for example, I want to put this in a room, right? I want to put the car in the room. So I'm going to go append, right? And I want to go and see where I can get this. I'm going to go up a level. So here's Tom's head. Too bad I don't have that. It would be awesome if I could show you it. It was pretty cool. But not important. Let's go back up to my desktop. And in there I have another scene that I call room. I'm going to go into my room. And if you notice, inside my room blend file, I have a bunch of stuff. For example, I have my object, and I have my floor, my ceiling, my cameras, all those things I need to add in. I can drag and drop, and I can include all the stuff that I want. And I can, let's say I don't want my lamp, because I have a lamp already, I can take my lamp away. So I want all that stuff. I want my objects. Okay, so I want to append from library. So that's the first thing I want to do. So if you notice, my room came into play, too. It's my room. So I did a kind of this room, right, that I want to kind of do with a window and everything else. Okay, and if you notice, both objects, if I press G, they're in kind of they're both together now. Right? What was that? I can also I can put that I can do that too. But if you notice here, I can also put it in a different scene. If I go to a different scene, I can drag and drop it in there as well. I can open it. Now I have my blend file only has objects. There's no mesh right now. There's nothing else in here, right? So that's what the problem is. But that's how you would do an append, right? That work for you? Yeah. All right. So that's it. That's it for today. Next day we'll follow up and get this. So now we got our character. Hopefully you guys are gonna. I want to see if you guys are gonna follow up and get the animation sequence so we can get our guy running, right? Are you gonna do it? Maybe. He's like, maybe I will. And then we'll see what happens, right? And then for me, what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you how to collide with other objects. I know we kind of got derailed with a couple things today, but that's okay because this is what happens when we're doing 2D and 3D stuff with Blender or some other game engine. Okay, and that's it for me.